I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Ballistic is pretty freaking cool.
That might be a good ult. That might be a good ult I have on them. They have 24 flashes, someone. Got him,
Last one. What? Oh my god. Oh, he jumped!
What?
Oh
my god, he got the nade over the bubble. Careful. Oh my god. What the f was that?
I want to start things off by talking about just how badass his name is.
August Brinkman.
Are you kidding me, dude? The only other name that rivals that is something like John Wick, and clearly there's a bit of inspiration going on between the two characters. They both have this flashy, cool guy action hero thing going on, and I'm a total fan. Typically, I'm not super into these action hero type personas, but Ballistic's a bit different for me. I don't know what it is about him, but his personality just really... that nice. That real nice. I may even go as far as saying he has one of the best personalities in the Outlands. And I know that's a ridiculously bold claim. Characters like Pathfinder, Watson, Vantage, Mirage exist, but dude, come on. Sure, he may say a few weird boomer things like,
Care package incoming. Does your generation usually require this level of assistance?
whoa, Ballistic is a boomer in like the bad way. Does your generation typically require this level of assistance? You just called him snowflakes. That's crazy. To think this is the man I call my main. How disappointing. It's a little cringe, but at the same time, that kind of goes hard. Like if I was in the Apex games and I got a care package weapon and my grandpa was like, oh, you gosh darn ginziers with your care package weapons back in my day, I'd be like, okay. All right, Gramps. Anyways, I think the reason I love Ballistic can be summed up pretty quickly. He's the main character, the absolute star of the show. But like with any interesting figure, their kick-ass persona doesn't come for free. Unfortunately, August Brinkman / Ballistic had to go through a fair bit of trauma before being this badass. Ballistic grew up in an incredibly wealthy family. Like, damn, they got money. A lot of this wealth was generated through less than ideal means. His parents were constantly doing shady deals, putting themselves in danger, and, well, I think it's safe to say that caught up with them. There came a point where Ballistic's family bit off a bit more than they could chew and passed away. I think the passing away of his parents shaped who he is now. If I had to guess, a little kid who has something like that happen probably is left with a lot of feelings of, why didn't you guys stop when you were ahead? Why wasn't I good enough? Why did you need more money? I miss you. And when you get to thinking about it, the guy you see in the trailer makes a lot of sense. You know, there comes a point in the trailer where he's literally doing like 360 no-scopes flying through the air. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm 99% sure he's just looking for approval. He didn't get that, oh, pat on the back, good job, kid. So now he's doing 360 no-scopes flying through the air and then winking at people like, oh, yeah, I'm cool. I know you saw that, but really, that's just how I interpret things. I could be totally wrong. Maybe I'm looking way too far into it, and he's not this traumatized little kid trying to make his parents proud. But anyways, on to the next part of his lore, because that's not his entire character. Early on in Ballistic's adult life, he decided to join the Thunderdome games. This was the tournament that was played before the Apex games. This did not have respawning. While participating in these games, Ballistic met not only his new teammates, but his wife. Now, here's where it gets a little bit funky. I don't know about you guys, but this like their third kind of just like breaks everything for me. It's so weird. Imagine being in a team where it's, you know, you pretend you're Ballistic, and then you got your wife, you know, you love her oh so much, and then you have your brother-in-law. Like, I don't know. I feel like that would cause all sorts of problems, but you do you, boo. Anyways, that was their team. Ballistic, his wife, his brother-in-law. Everything was great. They were at the top of the leaderboards, really feeling themselves, up until Ballistic was feeling himself, maybe a little bit too much. Unfortunately, his selfishness and desire to be praised cost him his teammate's life. Ballistic's brother-in-law was fatally injured thanks to him being distracted. This obviously left him devastated, guilty, depressed, and eventually led to him being entirely isolated. It's at this time that in the trailer they show us that he has a son, not just a wife. But Ballistic's self-obsessed persona does not end at the Thunderdome games. This bleeds into his real life. He is entirely consumed by the mistake he created, and it eventually leads to complete and utter isolation. His son and wife end up leaving, and that's all he knew about them. That was until the Apex games announced their newest legend, his son. Little did he know that his son was going to follow in his footsteps. If I had to guess, his son was also left with a bit of a void due to his father neglecting him. I don't know if it's genetic or, you know, just the cycle coming full circle, but I find that incredibly upsetting. Two kids trying to make their parents proud. I don't know. That freaking sucks. Anyways, Ballistic did not like this. I think part of him felt angry, almost as if the spotlight had been taken from him, but another part also felt sympathetic, worried even. Ballistic didn't want his son joining the Apex games. He's been down that road and he knows how it ends. So what does he do? What any sane father would do. He goes and talks to this greedy, corrupt dude with a trench coat. You know, Octane's granddad. He's like, hey, okay, I'm gonna hold you at gunpoint. I need you to take my son out of the games and put me in his place. We got a deal? And at first, I'm sure Octane's granddad wasn't super into the idea, but then he's like, okay, listen. August Ballistic Brinkman, old star. His legacy has faded. Is he washed up or nah? And then he's like, oh, yeah. That right there, that will sell. I'm in. And so, Ballistic suits up, gets ready, and breaks the news to his son. Indirectly, of course, because this man cannot take accountability for anything. And quickly, before we go ahead and talk about his abilities, let's talk about some of these little Easter eggs, you know, these fun facts when it comes to lore. First one would be that Gibraltar actually looked up to Ballistic as a kid. He had posters up on his wall, and in general was a fan. This one's probably my favorite little secret lore bit. Apparently, Pathfinder was a butler for Ballistic for a little while. I think he actually has a skin to show that off. I think that's hilarious. But yeah, now that we've covered who Ballistic is, let's go ahead and talk about how Ballistic is. Ballistic's passive is called Sling, and it lets him carry a third weapon in sling, I guess. And yeah, this is a crazy ability for sure, but it's not as overpowered as it sounds initially. You're not going to be able to put any attachments on this weapon, so while it is useful and incredibly strong, without his ultimate, it's really not that great. That being said, I actually really enjoy this ability. It's been a hot minute since I've tried to theory craft things with characters. A lot of the time, I like to envision myself using specific loadouts or team comps to benefit a character the best I can. Kind of like using a rampage with fuse. You can hold double the grenades, so I'm like, oh, okay, I should just stack up on thermites and use the rampage. That ended up being not so great, but you can still kind of do that. Anyways, Ballistic has a lot of these same theory crafting properties. Recently, I've been running the flatline in the car and then just kind of switching them out. Obviously, you're going to need to hold a heavy mag instead of a light mag on your car, but if you do this, you can share the attachments, and if at one point you want to fight close range, you just swap for that car, and if at another point you want to fight at range, you switch shit out for the flatline. And that also doubles up when you use your ultimate, but we'll get into that in a second. Last but not least, if you're not really into this whole like gimmicky switching your weapons back and forth thing, feel free to run like a wingman or a PK or whatever you want in there. I will say, if you do run a PK or a wingman and you decide to carry ammo for it, you're going to look a bit silly. I mean, every time you open your inventory, there's just going to be an ugly stack of ammo sitting there. Who wants that? Not me. I'll get into recommendations for what you should put in your sling in the tips portion of this video, so hang tight. Okay, all right. Oh, Ballistic's Tactical. Let's talk about it. Ballistic's Tactical is called Whistler, or the Whistler. I don't actually, hold on, let me look this up. Okay, all right. The wiki says it's called Whistler, period. No the. Ballistic's Tactical is the ability that I thought would ruin Apex Legends. No, I'm not exaggerating. You can scroll through my Twitter. I was really scared. The idea of being able to overheat somebody you're 1v1ing and do damage just really terrified me. But I'm lucky to come back and report it's actually fairly balanced. The way this ability works is that you're given a smart pistol. Don't worry, you don't have multiple bullets like you do in Titanfall 1 and 2. It's just a single-use weapon and then it goes on cooldown. You can either tap or hold this weapon when you want to use it. Tapping it will just fire it. If you land on target, it'll have all the regular effects, you know, 20 damage on impact up close, 5 damage on impact at range, and then 30 damage upon overheating. But I don't really think there's a reason to just free fire it unless you're trying to put it onto terrain, which by the way, you can do. If you want to prevent somebody from pushing, just put it at a doorway. When they walk through, it'll stick to them and have all the same effects. The good way to use this ability is to hold down the tactical button. And you don't even have to do this for a long time. Whenever you hold down your tactical button and decide to use this ability, you get aimbot. Yes, full-blown aimbot. You get to roleplay Toofy. I don't know if you guys still remember that guy, but holy crap, he was a problem. Anyways, once you lock onto a target and let go, the smart pistol will fire a bullet that will track its target and otherwise perform exactly the same. Something to note about the Whistler is that the overheating can't actually kill somebody. It does 30 damage upon overheating, but if you're at 1 HP, it literally just won't finish you. Obviously, if you're fighting in Storm, be careful because the zone will kill you right after. But yeah, don't try to be a show-off and then let somebody kill themselves with the overheat because it's not going to happen and you're going to look like an idiot. That totally didn't happen to me earlier. For the first like day or two I was using it, I was like, dude, I'm missing something. This is not good. What is going on? Half the time it would just hit terrain, and the other half of the time I would just not use the ability because my key bindings weren't set up perfectly for it. I don't know. There's a few funky things when it comes to his tactical, but once again, I'll go over those in the tips section. It was a bit of a mess. Now to talk about Tempest, Ballistic's ultimate. This beautiful ability is Ballistic's bread and butter. That sounds a bit crazy considering he gets a third weapon and a bot, but I'm serious. This is what makes Ballistic totally worth running. Tempest is probably the single best fighting ability in the game right now. Whenever you activate it, you and your teammates, as long as they're close enough, will get buffed out the wazoo. You'll get infinite ammo, fast as heck reloads, and to top it all off, you get unholstered movement speed with your gun out, so you can feel good about being a noob. But wait, there is more. The ability doesn't actually end there. Not only does it do all that I just listed, but it will also turn your sling weapon gold. Oh my god, yes sir. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for. Ballistic tip time. We're gonna go and start off by talking about his ultimate. There's a handful of weapons that have interesting interactions once you ult, such as the Rampage and the Sentinel. I think a lot of people have figured this out by now, but for those of you who don't know, whenever you have a Rampage or a Sentinel in your sling, and you go ahead and use your ultimate Tempest, those two weapons will actually be amped up / charged. The Rampage will have the increased rate of fire and ability to destroy doors, and the Sentinel will have the increased damage, and really cool sound effects. I do really think that the Rampage is probably one of the best weapons you can use in the sling, and the Sentinel is cool. I appreciate it being charged up and whatnot, but I don't think it's all that useful due to the nature of playing as a sniper. I much rather use my ultimate as a "let's go, get in there" button and not a "let's just like poke and have infinite ammo" button. Another incredibly cool feature of his ultimate is that it actually puts hop-ups on your slinged weapon. So if you want to run an RE45, a P20, or a Mozambique, you totally can, and it's actually not too bad. I will go ahead and warn you guys, don't forget that the G7 Scout and the EVA have double tap. The majority of people aren't really into that hop up, so remember, if you ever have that in your sling and you ult, you're gonna have to A, disable it, B, get used to it. And last thing before we go ahead and talk about is tactical. SMGs are 100% the way to go, especially if you're duoed with a Bangalore. I mean, dude, just like, I don't know. Being given a digi threat and instantaneous reloads along with the crazy movement speed is just insane. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention this. Ballistic's ultimate is on a 120-second cooldown. What that means is use it. Just use it. Don't think about it. Just use it. If you're going to fight, slam that thing. It'll be up by the next time you need it. On top of it having an incredibly low cooldown, it also gets an extra 5 seconds per team wipe. So if you're going to get in there and fight multiple teams, that thing's going to last for a hot minute. Now for some tips regarding his tactical. If you guys are anything like me, you've been having trouble using that thing effectively. On PC, having Q as the tactical button isn't super useful because a lot of the time you want to initiate your 1v1 while locking in, and holding Q is going to make it a heck of a lot harder to strafe to the left during 1v1s. So what did I do? I went ahead and rebound my tactical button to my control key. Now I'll just strafe normally, have my 1v1, and lock on with my pinky. And you may think that's a lot of work, and yeah, you're right, but if you're not using Ballistic's tactical every single time you 1v1, you're kind of throwing, it's a free 20 to 50 damage, so you may as well take it. Another thing that I was really struggling with was hitting people whenever they were playing around cover. The Whistler wants to take the quickest path possible, so it'll go from the barrel to the target in a straight line, unless you do something to mess with that, such as flick off to the left or the right. If somebody's playing a box, what do you need to do? That's right, baby. Aim it off to the side and it'll actually go around. This is going to take a little bit of getting used to, but it's really worth it. And side note, if somebody's doing a head glitch, I recommend you shoot it almost straight up into the air. I think the way it works is that it wants to target the torso. So if they're playing a head glitch, it'll just ignore their head altogether and just hit the box that they're on or the ramp or whatever. So yeah, make sure you're thinking about how you shoot your tactical. Ultimately, I think Ballistic is an incredible legend, especially for those of us who love to get in there and fight our butts off. The only downside is that Ballistic is a little one note. He's only good at one thing, but that one thing that he's good at, he's pretty much the best at. So once again, if you're a big fighter and you have a coordinated team to push things, go ahead and run this character. He's probably one of your best options. I think it's safe to say Ballistic's a 10 out of 10. Thank you, Respawn.